This episode is brought to you by Springbrook Autism Behavioral Health. Springbrook provides comprehensive, evidence-based care for children and adolescents with autism and other developmental disabilities. With residential services, educational programming, and clinical support all in one place, Springbrook focuses on helping each individual build skills, increase independence, and reach their full potential. To learn more about their program and how they're supporting families every day, visit their website at springbrookbehavioral.com. Well, hey guys, and welcome back to All Abilities No Filter. I'm Jake Edgar. I'm your host of the show, and I am so excited about today's episode. It's been one that I have been waiting a long time to share with you guys, and it is one of our more interesting and unique episodes. I was able to sit down with Lawrence Bartley, who is the autistic hypnotist, and we were able to sit down and talk about his experience with hypnotherapy and what it has meant to him and how it has helped him throughout his neurodivergent life and overcome certain obstacles. And he himself is a hypnotist who specializes in helping autistic people free themselves from anxiety, screen addiction, and other forms of repressed emotion. And this episode was so amazing, and I learned so much in this short amount of time. And I know it's going to be one that you guys are going to remember. So just sit back, and I hope you guys enjoy this amazing conversation. Thanks, guys. Hey, Lawrence. Well, man, I appreciate you so much being with us today. How are you doing?
Amazing. Thank you for having me. I appreciate very much that you have me on this show. Thank you very much for this opportunity, Jake. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good, man. I've been looking forward to this episode for a while because I have no idea about your expertise, and I would love to learn more about it. But before we get into that, if you wouldn't mind just kind of telling our listeners a little bit about yourself, what kind of has led you to be doing what you're doing now, and kind of what brought you on the show today.
So my story is my name is Lawrence Bartley, and I'm the autistic hypnotist because I'm an autistic individual. I have Asperger's syndrome, the high functioning autism, and all my life I kind of struggled with communication problems. So I ended up learning all sorts of things to help myself out with communication issues. So I'm like learning micro expressions, learning body language, but also learning hypnosis in an attempt to learn how to communicate with people even more effectively. So I guess my story about how what led me here is that pretty much all my life I also had anxiety. I had anxiety, depression was very severe. I went into therapy for it for several years, but unfortunately that didn't help me. And eventually one day the interest in hypnosis and the anxiety ended up overlapping because one day I went off to a hypnosis training to learn more about communication. But while I was there, I worked with a professional hypnotherapist for my anxiety, and I just felt better. I felt a big, massive amount of tension. My body just broke apart, just melted away. And when I came back home after the training, back to my normal life, a lot of the anxiety that had bothered me just wasn't there anymore. A lot of the depression and just it just didn't exist anymore. Because one of the things that I would have is I would feel this horrible sense of tension just going into college, for example, where, college is usually, it's a pretty safe place. The people are nice. There's kind of no reason to have anxiety there, but I had a lot of anxiety there. But after working with the hypnotherapist, I found myself feeling normal. I found myself feeling relaxed. That tension had disappeared. And after that, I kept going back to more hypnotherapy trainings. Eventually, one day I became a hypnotist, and I decided to specialize in helping autistic people because I feel like there's a lot of autistic people who are in my situation, who are very anxious, very depressed, and they're doing all the normal things like therapy, but therapy doesn't help everyone. The normal methods, unfortunately, they don't help everyone. So one of the reasons of why I'm here is just teach people a little bit about hypnosis, present and new opportunities, something else that you can do for anxiety, because I know that it helped me.
And that's so cool, because I know when people think about hypnosis and hypnotist, and I'm guilty of this too myself, first thing I'm going to think of is Vegas and magicians and all this crazy stuff you see on TV and things like that. But a lot of people, including myself, don't realize that it is used as a therapeutic tool and could be used to help people in everyday life and things like that. And I know very little about it. So that's why I'm so excited to speak with you today. Because like I said, the most I know about it is magic shows and things like that, things you see online and all that crazy stuff. So getting your point of view where it's used as a therapy tool and really used to better someone's life and things like that is so cool to learn about. So I know you said you went to hypnotherapy yourself for help and for assistance. Can you kind of talk me through that? What was that like for you when you first kind of got introduced for it? What did they do? Or what kind of things did you do to help yourself feel less, like you said, less anxious or things like that? If you could take me through that, that would be great.
So what happened was during the hypnosis training, I met a professional hypnotherapist and I decided to work with her. The instructor gave us about 20 minutes and he gave us this exercise for anxiety. It was on the final day of the course, where during the entire course we've been sort of building up like how to help people with little stuff, but now on the final day it was time to help somebody with a big problem, and I chose anxiety as my big problem. So I work with this woman who is already a professional, and what she has me do is just close my eyes, go inside a hypnotic trance, and it was rather metaphorical imagination journey that what she had me do, where she had me imagine going inside of an art gallery and seeing a painting, and the painting was supposed to represent the problem that I had, and my unconscious mind would produce an image, because the unconscious mind, it doesn't talk logically. Your unconscious mind speaks in symbols and metaphors. That's how it talks to your conscious mind, because they're different languages. The unconscious mind is all about words and ABCs, 1, 2, 3's, logic. The unconscious mind is totally different, so it speaks in terms of metaphors. The first painting must represent the problem, and she had me imagine a second painting, the real problem, and a third painting that would be the solution. And I saw the solution, that problem just melted away. Because one of the things about hypnosis is everybody sort of already has a solution within them, sort of the movie trope, the power was within you all along. One thing that hypnosis does is it helps you guide you to finding that solution within you that was already there all along. So,
wow.
So, yeah.
That's so cool. So it's almost like, and feel free to tell me if I'm completely wrong and talking about stuff I don't know, but you're almost using it to like kind of, like you said, your conscious mind, where you're having to think so logically and so black and white. It really kind of opens the door for a lot of barriers, a lot of things you can't get around almost because of that logical thought. And you're kind of saying with your unconscious mind, you're almost able to navigate around those literal and such focused barriers, because you're able to, like you said, think metaphorically or think in a way that's not hindering you because of all those, like you said, those literal and just things you have to always consider and think about when you're, like you said, your conscious mind. Is that kind of what you're kind of describing? Because I know a lot of the times when we work with the people we work with, which are autistic individuals, they have such a hard time not seeing things in black and white, such a hard time not being able to think hypothetically or be able to put themselves in other situations because that situation didn't happen to them. So do you think kind of hypnosis and hypnotherapy kind of assists individuals that have that blocks and those problems sometimes?
So what I would say is that hypnotherapy, it does help people change software for problems like anxiety and depression. It won't so much change the hardware, black and white thinking. I've known several hypnotists who did attempt to work with autistic people, especially Asperger's people like myself, for like the black and white thinking. But when you work with somebody like that, it tends to be more mixed results. Because some people will get it, but then others, unfortunately, won't. Unfortunately, there's just so much variety in people that some of them might not get it. One of the things that hypnosis does, like going back to the story is that it does open up a lot of lines of thinking when you're going inside a hypnotic trance. If you actually look at what happens inside someone's brain, you've got the right hemisphere, the left hemisphere, and then you've got the bridge in between them. That bridge actually gets thicker, and the both hemispheres can start to just talk more, let's start to communicate better between each other. In fact, one of the things that hypnosis does is it takes the problem inside the emotional hemisphere and just moves it into the logic hemisphere. And because logic hemisphere doesn't understand emotions, it just strips the emotions away, all the negative problem stuff and associated with it. Which is why a lot of people, after they've been hypnotized, they can remember the problem they had, but it's in the past, like a distant memory.
That's wild. So it's when you're working with an individual, or when you first started being introduced to that, you talk about that hypnotic state. What does it take to get someone into that state? Because like I said, you see people online or on TV, and you'll see the crazy videos of a man jerking a person's arm and they just look like they completely collapse and pass out. Or if they say a certain phrase, they pass out. And in my uneducated mindset, that looks what I would consider a hypnotic state, is when your body goes completely limp and but as a professional yourself, you probably see it in all types of different ways. So what exactly is the hypnotic state, and what do you do with individuals or even yourself to get someone there? Because I've never been hypnotized in my life, but I am such an overthinker and like I said, pragmatic person. I feel like someone with my brain would have a really hard time getting like that, because I'm very ADD and just always thinking all the time. And I'm sure you probably deal with people like that. But what does it take to get someone to get into that state?
Well, the thing about the hypnotic state is that it's a natural state that everyone goes into. In fact, you've already been in that state this morning when you woke up. And you go back to that state just before you go back to sleep every night. And if you actually want to experience hypnosis right now, you can just take out your phone and go on TikTok. Because that is also another hypnotic state, is that it's that magnetic pull going into TikTok and just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Because people, when they're addicted to a screen, usually they're zoned out. That zoning out place is the exact same place you go to for hypnosis. I just teach people to do it a little differently, in a way that helps them to let go of problems instead of like TikTok putting problems inside you.
That's, man, I never thought of it like that. So it is like where I'll say, like, my wife loves to look at her phone and she likes to scroll and look at things, and you can tell in her face because she'll be scrolling, and then I'll tell her it's time to go somewhere, time for dinner, and she completely is shocked that it's that time, because she's been, like you said, she hit that state where time just kind of flies by because she's so zeroed in looking at things. But I also do that. It's just wild you kind of put it in that way, because it is kind of like when I'm at work, time just flies by because I zero in and focus on so many things. So it is so interesting that you put it that way, because it makes total sense. Because when it is wild. That is, I've never heard it put that way, and that's so cool. Are there certain techniques that you use? Not even just individuals with autism, because we can talk about that in a second, because that's a whole nother, probably another thing. But when just in general, are there certain techniques that you use to help people get into that state?
There's all sorts of different hypnosis inductions that people can use. But to be honest, the big principle behind every hypnosis induction is just taking somebody from outside external world to just going within themselves. In fact, hypnosis would be more similar to meditation in that sense of going within. And sometimes you can just tell people to go within. Sometimes you do use a little induction. Sometimes I can have people just doing a breathing exercise and having focus on all the shifting sensations that changing their breathing will cause inside their body. And once they're paying attention to body sensations, well, that's them going within themselves into that place of hypnosis, and then we can go and get to the work.
So is there similarities between like hypnosis and like meditation? Because I've actually tried, and sounds a lot like what you're kind of talking about, where they align your breathing and teaching you different breathing techniques to kind of almost block out all the noise around. So it kind of sounds somewhat similar strategic approaches there, which is really cool. Because like I said, all I've ever seen is like waving the clock in front of, or the watch in front of people's faces and telling them to watch that, or doing a little spinning thing, or telling them to think of certain phrases. So it's cool to hear someone kind of almost simplify it a little bit, because when you see it online or whatever, it almost looks like this mythical power type thing, which to a lot of people it is like that, because it's helping them so much. But it's cool to have you almost kind of simplify it to where it is you're just kind of being able to get to a state to where you're able to help yourself and block out around things around you. How long, or what is your experience? I know yourself being on the spectrum, but what is your experience with using this strategic way of thinking or hypnotherapy with individuals on the spectrum? Because I know a lot of our listeners have vast amounts of experience, and telling one person that's neurodivergent to be able to slow it down and focus and block things out and get to that state is probably very different than telling someone on the spectrum whose brains, they just work a little bit different, or there's different obstacles you have to face, if that's your experience. But so what is it like using this to assist people that are neurodivergent and on the spectrum?
So I wouldn't really say you're blocking things out. I say more focused within, so that all the external things just don't bother you anymore.
Sure.
And when you're going into hypnosis, because one thing I've noticed with autistic people is one of the biggest problems they tend to have is that they're so analytical. And actually, a lot of hypnotists don't really like working with autistic people because they're so analytical. They question everything. Although, quite frankly, I find that to actually be one of the most helpful things in helping them go within, is because everybody can go within hypnosis. You've already been hypnotized by your phone. So it's just a matter of working with someone. When somebody comes to me and they're like really analytical, what I'll do is I just have them analyze all the feelings and all the sensations inside their body. And then I have them analyze that analysis, and then analyze the analysis of the analysis, until they're so busy focusing on the analysis that everything I'm saying can just go within slip past the conscious mind and into your unconscious mind, to start helping them change at that unconscious level.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, because as someone that's, like I said, worked with this population a lot of the time, it's sometimes it's difficult to be able to separate and understand that when you're working with children or adolescents or adults that are on the spectrum, how to approach their way of thinking and mindsets differently. Because they're kind of like you said, they're extremely analytical, questions everything, wants reasons for everything. So that's pretty amazing. You're able to use these techniques and when working with individuals like that. I know you probably got a ton of them. What is kind of like one of your success stories, or just any situation you've worked with somebody that really sticks out, where you really could see the benefit that they're having, or were able maybe to do things they weren't able to do before they worked with you?
There is one story that always comes to my mind. It was this autistic girl, and well, she was a student in college, and she was living in these college dorm rooms. And what happened was, Halloween came, and everybody put up all these Halloween decorations, including a bunch of plastic spiders, and well, she had arachnophobia. Halloween went, they took down most of the decorations, but they kept the spiders that were in the kitchenette area in her dorm room. They kept them there. Well, she couldn't even go in, knowing they're plastic spiders, knowing they're not real, they're just toys, just decorations. She still felt intense fear so much that she couldn't go into the kitchenette area of her own dorm room. So I ended up helping her out with that. And what I did was, when I actually had her imagine the spiders, because when you're working with somebody for a fear or phobia or anxiety or even PTSD, you have to turn on the part of the mind that has the problem. So you're working with the part of the mind that has the problem. You can then change that part of the mind. When I had her imagine the spiders, her shoulders just jumped right up. She said, "They're crawling on my head," and she ended up actually pulling a muscle in one of her shoulders. It was an extreme reaction that I'd never experienced before. And unfortunately, I had to sort of leave the session there. But we worked again, and the second time, because I still in the you have to imagine surprise thing, artist's way of thinking. I think I'd approach it differently now, but what I did was I had her imagine another version of herself imagining the spiders, because what that does is it distances herself from the emotion. I had the other version of her run the fear protocol that I use for arachnophobia. Then I had that other version of her imagining that coming inside her, integrating it with her, and then I had her run the fear protocol on herself again. And now the fear of spiders is gone. She will laugh at spiders if she sees them. Instead of fear, it's turned to laughter.
That's wild. I know a lot of people that could use that. Like I said, I know spiders is a pretty well-versed fear that people have, but that's just it's just so cool to think about how you can almost just rewire it, the way of thinking and the way you see things by using those techniques, and that's just so cool. Are there like tips and tricks you could give even our listeners who, like I said, have never done it before and maybe don't have access to a professional like yourself, but are there tips and tricks people can use at home or things that they can implement just to help them through different struggles they're having? Or like I said, not a lot of people have access to people like you that have so much knowledge and training in it. Are there anything people can do at home or in their daily lives that can help out?
There is one technique that always comes to my mind because I found it to be incredibly effective. And for anybody who wants to go and Google it, it's called NLP spinning. So NLP, by the way, means neuro-linguistic programming. So basically what it is whenever you feel high stress, anxiety, fear, you point where you feel it in your body, because every emotion, there's a corresponding physical sensation in your body. So you point where you feel the emotion, that tension, that feeling of a fear, and you notice whatever direction is spinning, because the thing about emotions is they're always moving. Emotions are basically energy, and energy is always moving. So then you take that movement, and then you just spin it in the other direction, in whatever other direction it is, faster and faster. Because what that does is that it takes the fear, the passion that's going to the fear, and you end up breaking the passion by sending sort of like an equal but opposite force going in the other direction, and it brings the person to a stage of neutral. And that tends to be very effective at breaking fears and phobias and anxieties. And after that, one thing that people can also do, because once you take out a fear, there's now a void, and anything could fill that void. So one thing that's important to do is to put something of a powerful positive emotion inside that void instead. Something like to imagine a healing light coming inside you, a light of love or power or strength, some positive emotion that you want instead of that fear. Because it's important, because everybody wants to know, or everybody focuses on the fear that they don't want, but not a lot of people focus on what do you want to feel instead of that fear. So once you've neutralized the emotion, to imagine a healing light of power, of love, of positive energy coming inside your body and filling up your body. Because the thing about your unconscious mind is that it doesn't actually understand the difference between something real and something vividly imagined. Just like the girl and the fear of spiders. In her mind, there's no difference between real spiders and plastic decoration spiders. Everybody acts like that. And the thing about that is once you understand that, you can start to use your own imagination to start changing the feelings inside your body.
It's pretty amazing. And I know one thing when I've spoken to listeners or parents, and this is kind of off the top of my head, as I was wanting to ask you, with autism or neurodivergent or working with kids that have anything going on, one of the things we deal with a lot and try to help out with is like the physical stimming that a lot of kids go through. We work with kids that they want to rock constantly. Or a lot of times it can be a negative stim of pulling their eyebrows out or pulling hair out, scratching at their skin. And when I'm able to talk to kids and adolescents of why they're doing it, it's kind of what the anxious feeling is so overwhelming that they automatically go towards that negative physical action. Do you think that hypnotherapy, in your experience, you might have worked with clients like this, can assist with that type of just visceral reaction to stress? Because it is just an automatic thing they do, to where it's as soon as they feel that certain way, it's programmed into them to start that negative behavior, which can also often be very self-harming.
Well, when it comes to self-harming, most self-harm is usually some control issue in their lives. And one thing I found with self-harm is that hypnotherapy can definitely help with it, because when it comes to a control issue, that's usually that is almost always some sort of trauma. And hypnotherapy was built to help people with trauma. So I definitely believe that it can help people when the stimulus gets to a level of self-harming.
Absolutely, and I think that's amazing, because with that kind of action behavior, it's often a struggle for us, and when we're working with clients like this, because it's not like they're just doing it for attention; they're doing it as a reaction to not getting what they want. It's a physical action that they're doing. So looking at them and telling them just to stop doing it it often leads to more problems than it cures. So I think what you're saying and approaching it from your way would be a much more healthy and beneficial way. And that's pretty amazing. Just to hear about all these techniques and the way that they can help people, Lawrence, is very cool and very interesting to hear about. And if you wouldn't mind, let our listeners know where they can find your information, if they want to get in contact with you, or if you have other information out or platforms. I know our listeners would love to hear about those.
Sure. So if anybody wants to, they can follow me on the social media company X, formerly Twitter. The Autistic Hypnotist at Law_Bartley. And I also have a website, lawrencebartley.com, which is just my name.com. And I also have a daily newsletter, which people can join up to as well. I call it the Labyrinth newsletter. And for people who join, they also get a free hypnosis for sleep recording, because I think we all know the problems that lack of sleep causes with people.
Absolutely. And listeners, all of Lawrence's information is also going to be on our website with links that you guys can go check out, because I know he's got a ton more information and a ton more knowledge that I think you guys could always benefit from. And please go check that out at our website. Well, Lawrence, I appreciate you so much being with us. This has been one of the cooler conversations I've had in a long time. Love learning about things I have no idea about. So you have been an amazing guest with amazing information, and we appreciate you so much.
Thank you very much. It's very kind to hear that. It's wonderful talking to you, Jake.
Thank you. So listeners, please check us out at allabilitiesnofilter.com, where you can find this episode and all of our other episodes and content from all of our guests, including Lawrence, with all his amazing information. Please go check that out, because we want to help you out. Also, don't forget to leave a comment and questions, and including future topics you guys would like us to discuss and have conversations on. But until then, guys, we appreciate you being with us so much, and we can't wait to get around the table again for our next unfiltered conversation. Thanks, guys.